Morning folks, welcome to another little video. Hope you're really well. I am predominantly a road cycle touring kind of person, but out for another day ride today on the mountain bike with good reason, which I'll get into. But this little video today is just going to be my 5 suggestions or 5 recommendations for how you can prepare for your next bicycle tour. Okay, let's get into it. So I'm out on the mountain bike today, as I mentioned, up in the Pennines as usual. And for those of you who might be familiar with this area, the Pennines and Colesdale, on a little kind of bicycle pilgrimage today, so to speak. So I'm going to visit a 700-year-old, or the ruins of a 700-year-old church. It's quite famous in this area, and it's also the final resting place of quite a famous American poet who sadly took her life in 1963. All will be revealed if you don't know who I'm talking about towards the end of the ride, if I don't run out of batteries. Anyway, back to my kind of 5 tips and suggestions for things you can do to prepare for an upcoming bicycle tour. Tip number 1 for me would be get yourself ready. And what I mean by that is don't worry about your bike or your gear or your kit or your gadgets or anything like that. Actually think about getting yourself ready in terms of your fitness, time you spend on the bike, all those contact points that you're going to have on your bicycle tour. For example, if you're going on a multi-day tour, well, have you been out on consecutive days on your bike? If you're going on a tour that requires you to spend 5-6 hours in the saddle, have you spent 5 or 6 hours in the saddle in the weeks and the days leading up to the tour? So partly what I'm doing today is just trying to get myself ready for 3 weeks time, heading up to Scotland and starting my first bicycle tour of the year. It's pretty exciting. Okay, tip number 2 coming up. Okay, my second tip, after you've got yourself ready, is to get your bike ready, and I mean mechanically. So make sure that your wheels are true, take your bike down to a little bike shop and get the spokes sorted out if that's not the case. Your chain is sound, drivetrain is good, gears are indexed, and mechanically your bike is sound, because the last thing you want kind of interrupting a multi-day bike tour is just an endless series of mechanicals and having to divert and find bike shops and getting into all that kind of distractions. So yeah, tip number 2, after you've got yourself ready, get your bike ready and make sure it's mechanically spot on. Okay, tip number 3 coming up. Okay, tip number 3 after you've got yourself ready and your bike ready mechanically is to just dial in and test out the setup that you're going to have on your bike. So depending on what bike you're taking, whether you're using frame bags or panniers, more kind of traditional rack and panniers, just make sure you put all of that on your bike. You don't need to put all your kit in it, but just test out whether all the bike bags and frame bags and pannier racks and panniers that you're going to take with you actually fit on your bike and there's no issues, nothing's loose and everything's kind of good to go. Don't wait until the first day of your bike tour to find out that something snapped on your pannier rack, or one of your pannier bags has got a tear in it, or zips don't go up and all that sort of stuff. Just kind of make sure you've ironed all that out before you set off on your bike tour. But I am trying out panniers, a new pannier rack on the back of a new bike, and various little frame bags, just trying to make sure that this bike will take all of the little bits and pieces that I've got lying around that I tend to use for bike tours, and yeah, so far so good, and just a nice way to put your mind at ease and assure yourself that when you set off on your bike tour for real, all of your kit and all of your bags and frame bits and pieces are all in proper working order. Okay, tip number 4 and tip number 5 coming up very shortly. This is the old church, St Thomas of Becket, who was a Archbishop of Canterbury, I think in the 13th century, killed by Henry II, and I believe the foundations of this church are over 700 years old. It's pretty cool. I think there's some summer festivals at the local community house here, and the new church is just a bit further, well, next door really, just a bit further down there. Feels like an inappropriate place to talk about my tip number 4, but there goes anyway. So tip number 4, my suggestions for preparing for your next bicycle tour is to make a kit list, and you only really need to make this once, and then you can just refine it as you go on more and more tours. But it's a very useful thing to do, and it just means that you're not scrabbling around last minute trying to rack your brains for what you need to take. You've just got it all listed out, and you can just, run around your house or your flat, whatever, get the stuff that's on your kit list, get it into bags, and be relatively assured that you're taking everything you need with you. And I might just put on screen the current sort of kit list that I use, and feel free to dip into this for some ideas or some suggestions of what you might want to take on your own bicycle tour. Okay, tip number 5 coming up. Why am I whispering? There's no one around. Anyway. Okay, that's me done in Hepton Stall now. Sylvia Plath was our American novelist and poet, married to one of the poet laureates, Ted Hughes, who came from around these parts. So even though I don't think Sylvia ever lived around here, she certainly didn't die anywhere near here, but she was buried here. A little bit of controversy, and that gravestone has been vandalised several times and the name Hughes scrubbed out. Because of the connection between, I think, some of her struggles with mental illness and her suicide and her husband. To be honest, I don't know a great deal about that. You can go and research that or look at Wikipedia or whatever if you're more interested, but yeah, it's a lot easier coming down from Hepton Stall than it is cycling up that road. The cars are just driving up. It's a brutal climb up there, but nice to get up here. I've never been up to Hepton Stall, even though I've been in and around the Calder Valley since the 90s, many years. So it's nice to just kind of dip into a little bit of local history. That being said, I am ravenously hungry now, so I'm going to bomb down into Hebden Bridge, find a little cafe, fuel up a little bit, and then we'll start heading home. I haven't forgotten tip number 5. Tip number 5 is don't overplan when you're going on a bicycle tour. So in my opinion, it's a little bit controversial, but try and keep your plans flexible enough to cater for, you know, good days, bad days, days when you're really mile crunching, days when you're not crunching so many miles. You know, there may be certain train tickets or flights or travel arrangements that you need to make. There might be certain hotels if you're, you know, if you're travelling light and you're not camping. There are things you potentially do need to book in advance, but try and keep it to a minimum is my suggestion, and give yourself a little bit of breathing space, a little bit of contingency to kind of not do so many miles if you're not feeling it, etc. And you know, at the end of the day, you're going on a bike tour to enjoy yourself, and you don't want to be spending day after day just trying to hit a kind of pre-formed schedule that seemed like a good idea when you're sat at home on your sofa feeling brave. So yeah, tip number 5, if you can, don't overplan. Right, let's go get some tea, sandwich, maybe a slice of cake. Feeling the power of the cheese toasty. Well folks, that's me almost done for the ride. I've just got a little bit of climbing and I'm going to drop down home, and I'm really looking forward to a big cup of tea when I get in. It's been a great ride, 40 to 45 miles, probably about 4,000 to 4,500 feet of climbing on a semi-loaded bike. Really good little preparation ride for my upcoming bicycle tour. And if you haven't been to this part of the UK, Calderdale and the Pennines, come and have a play around this area. It's an absolute paradise for cycling, and on a day like today when the sun's shining, it's nice and warm, and the blue sky is all around. There's nowhere on planet Earth that beats it, quite frankly, and I know I'm biased obviously because this is my backyard. Great ride out. Hope you've enjoyed the little 5 kind of tips that I've suggested in terms of preparing for your own bicycle tour. I'm by no means a professional cycle tourist, that's pretty obvious when you see me riding. So if you do have little tips and suggestions yourself how you like to prepare, please let me know and drop me a comment, and very much appreciate. Also, if you consider liking and subscribing to my channel, it really helps me out, and it's really helping me to get this little fledgling YouTube channel off the ground. Otherwise, stay safe, take care, and let's enjoy the views on this stunning day up in Pennines. Happy cycling. Bye.